I just got finished talking about the things that led up to my decision to take my wife to the doctor's office. So I helped her get dressed. This was first thing Monday morning, November 16th. Almost remember it like it was yesterday. And I'm on my way to the doctor's office. While we were on our way to the doctor's office, my wife asked me several times where we were going. And calmly and concernedly, I told her that we were going to the doctor's office. When we arrived at her doctor's office, we were checked in, and there was a time that she seemed to not really know why we was at the doctor's office. So I continued to, be patient and calm with her. And we finally was called back to a private room. While we were in the private room, they take a urine sample and asked a few questions. And in about 5 minutes, the doctor came in. My wife was able to go to give her urine sample. I think the nurse might have helped her a little bit. But when the doctor returned into our room, or entered our room, she immediately cut the lights out, which struck me as being a little strange. She started talking to Diane, my wife, and my wife seemed confused about why she was at the doctor's office, and actually asked for another doctor while she was in this office. Right before the doctor entered the room, she asked my wife asked if we were coming to see another doctor, even though she was at a particular doctor's office. And I told her, no, we was at this doctor's office. I had to tell her 3 or 4 times. Well, when the doctor entered, she felt around on my wife, was very gentle, seemed very concerned. And she, after a couple of minutes of asking my wife a couple of questions, she turned to me and said, you guys need to go to the emergency room. Is there any particular one that you need to go to? And I said, well, what do you mean? She said, well, if your insurance isn't set up to any particular doctor, you need to get to anyone you can. And she then said, do you think you can get her to the emergency room before an ambulance could? Of course, that statement concerned me. And the hospital was just a mile or 2 away. So I told her I can get her there. And she said, well, you guys need to get out of here as soon as you can. Your wife has a problem with her liver, and she needs to get to the emergency room. So we packed out of there and was probably in the car within 10 minutes, maybe even less, maybe 5 minutes. And I took my wife to the emergency room. We walked in the emergency room, filled out the paperwork, and sat in a waiting area. Gosh, I don't know, it may have been an hour or an hour and a half before we was called back. It's now approximately 10:30. We're called back into the emergency room area where they see patients. They quickly determined that my wife was dehydrated. So they put her on an IV. I didn't know an IV can drip as fast as this one did. They took my wife back and forth a few different times, doing CAT scans, doing MRIs, asking me questions about what's been going on the past few days. And I gave them all of her history that I knew. And they were concerned if my wife had maybe had a stroke or 2 or 3. And I told them I did not see any evidence of her having any strokes or falling or anything like that. I also told them that there were several hours that I wasn't home, working out of the home. So they continued to seek those areas of concern. About an hour and a half after they gave her the IV, the quart-sized bag that they was giving her the IV through was almost empty. Normally, in the past of visiting people, my understanding was those bags drip at a rate that they empty in about 12 hours. This bag was almost empty in an hour and a half, almost 2 hours. I've seen clear evidence that physically she was bouncing back. She seemed to be stronger. She seemed to be sitting up, and she seemed to have energy all of a sudden. But she wasn't clear about where she was and what she was doing there and why she was doing there. Just total confusion. After a few hours at an emergency room area, they advised us to check into the normal part of the hospital. So we were being admitted into the hospital to try to find out what was wrong with my wife. And this was around 2 o'clock, maybe 2:30. So we were processing into the hospital to become patients in the hospital. And my wife was very confused. And of course, I was concerned for my wife of 23 years.